Hello, welcome to today's session. My name is Asmita, your English mentor here at Vedantu. And you know what? The English language is all about the verbs. No, well, we need other things too. But remember this, to make a sentence in English, you need a verb, okay? The shortest possible sentence that you can make in the English language would be this. Go. It's an order, it's an imperative sentence, so the subject here, which is you, is implied. But the verb can never be implied. Okay? Even this is considered a very short sentence in English. I am, which means I exist. Here again, we have a subject and we have a verb. Alright, so I would say you cannot have anything in the English language without verbs. And then the second place would probably go to nouns and pronouns, right? So verbs are invariable, they're indispensable, they're extremely important. And because they're so important, they have a lot of different forms. And because they have so many different forms and usages, we end up making a lot of mistakes when it comes to verbs. Don't worry, I'm here to help you out. But before I do that, I need you to help me out. If you find these videos helpful, don't forget to like them, comment, and share them with your friends so that I get to know that these are helping you out. And also don't forget to subscribe to Vedantu Study Abroad. Now, coming back to the topic, what are we going to do today? Now, you see, verbs is such a broad, such a vast topic. We start studying it when we are like 6-year-olds, and then as we get older, we build upon our understanding of verbs. Now, I don't know where you are when it comes to your English language level. So I'm not going to start from the basics and tell you everything because that's going to take way too long. We're going to focus on what we need to know from the perspective of the IELTS. Now, you're studying for a specialized test. I'm just going to focus on the kind of things you need to look out for in order to do well on this test, okay? So what are we going to do? First, we're going to see some differences and mistakes that are made when it comes to helping verbs and main verbs. When we're going to look at tense-related mistakes. We're not going to do all tenses, just some general tense-related mistakes that people tend to make while speaking or writing. We're going to look at active and passive voice, specifically the passive construction of verbs and mistakes related to it. See, our focus is always going to be on common mistakes so that we don't make those mistakes, all right? We are not building a house here, we are fixing a house here. We're fixing a broken house. We're not building a house from scratch. Remember that, okay? And we are going to see some forms of verbs that are used after certain adjectives and prepositions. Okay, so this is going to broadly be the focus of today's session. And before we dive right into it, you need a basic overview of verbs. So think of it as the basic layout of verbs. If you don't know this, you're not going to understand things further. So I'm just going to quickly take you through it. Now, verbs can be divided into two categories, helping and main. Now, the main verb is your indispensable verb that you cannot make sentences in English without. You can make sentences without the helping verb. You cannot make sentences without the main verb. All right. So, main verb, absolutely necessary when it comes to making sentences. But generally, we don't talk in such short, curt sentences. The entire point of the IELTS is to be able to show the examiner that we can communicate in English, and in order to communicate, we need to add more parts of speech to our sentences. So we do use a lot of helping verbs. So from the perspective of the IELTS, helping verbs are very important. Now, when it comes to main verbs, two ways to think about main verbs is, are they transitive or intransitive? All that means is transitive verbs require an object. An object, just like a subject, is a noun and a pronoun, or a pronoun, okay? And intransitive verbs do not require an object. So they need an object, don't need an object. Now, some verbs can be transitive or intransitive depending upon what you are trying to say. All right, for example, if I say I teach and I'm just talking about my profession, what do? I teach. All right, so in that case, teach, the verb, is intransitive because I don't need an object for this sentence to make sense. What do? I teach. That makes complete sense, okay? But if you're asking me what subject I teach, then I'll say I teach English, okay? So in that case, I need to add that English over there to make my answer applicable to your question, okay? So here, teach can be without an object or might need an object depending upon the circumstances. There are some verbs that always require an object, some verbs that never require an object. Okay, so that's not going to be our focus today. This is just some jargon. It's not really jargon, it's terminology that you need to know in case you're reading some support material, trying to understand certain things. You will come across these words and you need to know what they mean. Requires an object, does not require an object. Okay. Main verbs can also be regular or irregular. All that means is when we go from V1 form to V2 form to V3 form, which you're already aware of, base form, simple past and past participle forms, then regular verbs have a regular or a normal way of behaving. They have a pattern. What is the pattern? We simply add ed to the base form of the verb, and the V2 form is the same as the V3 form. That's the pattern that regular verbs follow when we change their form. Thing with irregular verbs is they don't follow a set pattern. Okay, so they behave erratically, they behave differently, and that's why they are irregular. All right, we have been mugging up regular and irregular verbs ever since we're in the 6th grade, I think, and 10th grade, we definitely spend a good amount of time mugging up regular and irregular verbs. So you shouldn't have a problem there. We are not aiming to look at long lists and memorizing irregular verb forms. We just need to know the correct verb forms of words that are generally used in the IELTS. Okay, so be on the lookout. For example, know, the verb know, knew, known, right? This is a commonly used verb, so we need to know the 3 forms of this verb. So just be on the lookout for this. Start taking mental notes that, okay, this verb is irregular. That's why the V2 form and the V3 form are different. Do this when you're preparing, when you're listening to some sessions where we discuss how to give good answers. When you're practicing writing, just be on the lookout for this. You don't have to go out of your way to memorize all irregular verbs. That is not possible, and that's a huge waste of your time. Okay, so this is what we need to know about main verbs. Now coming to helping verbs, now this is important. Remember, we have 2 types of helping verbs now. Okay, we have 2 types of verbs, helping and main. And then there are 2 different ways of categorizing main verbs. And then when it comes to helping verbs, we have again 2 different ways of categorizing helping verbs, auxiliary and modals. Okay, modal verbs always come before a main verb and they add to the meaning of the main verb. Some common examples of modals: can, could, will, may, might, all right, must. All of these are modal verbs. Okay, we've been studying modal verbs also since very early days in school, so nothing to worry about here. No new information. Auxiliary verbs, 3 kinds. Okay, we have forms of to be, we have forms of do, we have forms of has. They all serve different purposes as auxiliary verbs. Always remember that these 3 verbs, forms of be, that is am, are, was, were, forms of do, does, did, has, have, had, all of them can also act like main verbs in a sentence, okay? And when they act like main verbs in a sentence, the rules of main verbs apply to them as well, but they are also commonly used as helping verbs, okay? Now, the to be forms, the first thing that should come to your mind is they help us make the continuous tense in English. Okay. Do, first thing that comes to mind, they help us make negative sentences in the simple tense and they help us phrase questions. Has, help us make the perfect tense. Okay. These are 3 things you need to immediately remember as soon as you see these as auxiliary or helping verbs. When you see them as main verbs, just means I am angry. So here the to be form is just talking about your state, how you feel or what you are. Okay, the forms of do talk about an action being done. You're doing something, and generally we use do with I'm doing homework or I'm doing chores. Okay, I'm doing the dishes. It's a substitute for washing the dishes. Okay, and forms of has talk about ownership or possession when they are main verbs. For example, I have a pen, I have a fever. Okay, I had a great time, stuff like that. Okay, so this is a basic overview, stuff that you need to know, be aware of. And now let's look at some common errors that are made when it comes to using different verbs. You need to do this for me. The first one, very commonly made mistake. So quickly tell me in the comments what the mistake is. I'm giving you 2 seconds. You can even pause the video. And now that you're done pointing out the mistake, let me correct it for you. So mistake here clearly is I did a mistake, or don't do this mistake. Now we use do as a main verb to talk about certain actions, okay? Like I gave you certain examples. I'm doing the dishes, I'm doing my homework, okay? I'm doing the thing you asked me to, okay? Whatever it is. But we don't use do with the word mistake. We always use make with mistake. All right? So how can you remember this? Think about a mistake as something you're cooking, okay? Think about it like a dish. So you're making it, you're putting in different ingredients and coming up with ways to mess up, okay? So think about it as a dish that you're making. You will always make a mistake. You won't do a mistake. So here, I made a mistake. Don't make this mistake would be our correction. All right? Now, the second question, you can see 5 different verbs. And the thing is, these different verbs are often confused with each other and used interchangeably. Even though their meanings are similar, they have subtle differences and you need to know when to use which one. Okay? Fix, repair, prevent, solve, and resolve. All right? So here we have 4 sentences and you need to tell me when to use which word. And once you're done doing that, I will give you an explanation for each. So quickly pause and answer these questions. Pause. Come on, pause. All right, now I'm going to give you the answers. So it took me 2 hours to fix or repair the oil leak in my car. Okay, did you get it right? If not, that's okay. Fix and repair we use when we want to literally fix or mend something. Okay, there's a problem. It could be a physical problem. It could be some other kind of a blunder. Anything when we are using either tools or our brain. Actually, when we use our brain, that's a problem. We tend to solve a problem. But when it's something physical, we're using tools, we're figuring out ways to mend something, then we fix or repair it. It took me 2 hours to fix or repair the oil leak in my car. Okay? We cannot solve an oil leak. Okay? Solve is always with problems. Okay? Solve sort of sounds like solution. Okay, the way you can remember this also is that we usually solve maths problems. Okay, so solving always problems that require your brain to come up with a solution. Fix and repair, tools and stuff that you'll need to make something work properly again. You want something to work properly again because it has malfunctioned, then you will fix or repair it. Okay. Winning a great deal of money can't blank all your problems. You see the word problems, you know the answer is going to be solve. We closed all the windows to blank the rain from coming in. So when you stop something from happening, stop something from happening, just written a short form of something, that is prevent. Okay. Prevention is better than cure. You've probably heard that cliche a bunch of times. So we close all the windows to prevent the rain from coming in. And what can we do to resolve this situation? Resolve often entails a huge issue that concerns a lot of people, and you have to come up with a way to find either a middle ground or a possible solution. Solve and resolve, similar, But then solve is like actively solving a problem. Resolve is to think of resolving something as something that's tangled up and you're trying to untangle it, okay? So when you're solving, doesn't mean that there are issues at hand. It could start off as one unit and then you're breaking it down. That's how you solve. Think of it as a maths problem. Whenever you're solving a maths problem, you have an equation, you're breaking it down, you're coming to a single answer. Resolve, you're trying to look at all possible solutions to just untangle this mess that is there, okay? So that's how you can think about solve versus resolve. So when there's a situation that doesn't have one single answer, then you resolve the situation. So just remember this in terms of phrases. Solve problems, resolve situations, okay? We resolve issues, we resolve situations, we solve problems, okay? Alright, now here are some other commonly confused verbs. Know, learn, study, take, enroll. These are all very relevant for you because you are going to go study abroad and this terminology is not necessarily used in India, especially words like take are not used in India. So we need to know the differences between these words. Quickly answer the questions, pause and answer them and I'll give you the answers. Okay. In high school, you blank many different subjects, okay? So here, the two possible options that you can think about is you learn and you study, okay? So here, you are talking about many different subjects, okay? And even though you can learn different subjects, generally we use the word learn for specific things, okay? When we pinpoint exactly what we are learning, it could be a skill, it could be learning to cook a dish, it could be learning to play an instrument, it could be learning a language. When we are specifying exactly what it is that we are trying to acquire, then we use learn, okay? And when we are talking about a general subject or a general academic field, then we use the word study. So in high school, you study many different subjects would be our go-to choice over here, okay? I can hum the tune, but I don't blank the words, okay? So either you are aware of something or you're not aware of something, you understand something or you don't understand something. Essentially what I'm trying to say is you know something or you don't know something, okay? So here I don't know the words will be our choice. Before you can fly a plane, you need to blank how to land. You need to, we can use know here, you need to know how to land, that also works, but we are talking about acquiring a skill. Before you can fly a plane, you need to acquire the skill to land the plane. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in the air. So because we're talking about a specific skill, we use the word learn here. You need to learn how to land. We would like to blank in an English language course. So there is a language course. You want to be a part of it, okay? So whenever you want to be a part of a course, what do? You enroll in it, okay? So here we use the word enroll in, and it's always enroll in an English language course. And finally, I have to blank at least 3 science courses this semester. You have to take. Now remember, we as Indians have the habit of saying 2 things. First, with tests, we always say, I have given this test or I give a test. It's not give a test. The person who's giving the test is the person who has made the test and is giving it to you. What are you doing? You're taking the test, okay? So always use take with test, and you also take classes or take courses, okay? So just remember this because we as Indians are not used to this. I have to take at least 3 science courses this semester, okay? So those were some commonly confused verbs. Now we know how to use them, especially study and learn. Learn always focuses on something specific. Alright, now here's an interesting thing, and this is very relevant when it comes to the speaking part of your IELTS. This is same spelling but different pronunciation. As you can see, I've written the same word, but once in green and once in yellow. The green is the noun form and the yellow is the verb form. So these different verbs have the same spelling, but when they're used as two different parts of speech, we change their pronunciation to make things clearer. For example, we can use this word written over here as a noun or as a verb. Alright, but the way we say this word changes. Okay, now somebody holds the world record or record. What do we say? Record, record. Somebody holds the world record for so and so things. Okay, now I don't know, I can make something up. My friend owns a world record for sleeping the longest. Okay, so here what have I stressed on? Record, record. I stressed on the first part of the word. Record, record. You've heard of that device that plays those old vinyls, those round old vinyls that have the needle thing with the gramophone to play music. What is that called? It's called a record player. Record, record is the noun form. When we use this word as a verb, what are we trying to say? Either note something down, make a video of something, make an audio note of something. What is that called? Record. Okay, can I record this conversation? This conversation is being recorded for whatever training purposes. Okay, what do we focus on? The second part of the word, record. Record, record. Okay, now again, this is the noun, this is the verb. Okay, so as a noun, what this word means is your general behavior. Okay, we have a code of conduct. Code of conduct. Your conduct should be respectable. Okay, what are we focusing on? Conduct. Conduct. And so device conducts electricity, or the way she conducts herself is admirable. What are we stressing on? As a verb, on the second part of the sentence. Conduct, conduct. Conduct, conduct. So now we can see a pattern. Noun stresses on the first part, verb stresses on the second part. So, present, 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 present. Okay, she gave me a really cute birthday present. Okay, I present this trophy to you. Okay, object, object. Can you hear the difference? Object, object. I object, my lord. Object, object. Object, just a thing. Object, when you have a problem with something. Here's your noun, here's your verb. Permit. You need a permit to enter that state, or you need a permit to drive this vehicle. I permit you, permit, permit. I permit you, I allow you to do this, okay? And then finally, contest. I'm entering a creative writing contest, okay? Contest. He is going to contest this election, okay? My uncle's going to contest the local elections, all right? So every time it's in the noun form, we are stressing the first part of the verb. Verb form, we're stressing the second part of the verb, all right? Next, we've come to modals now, okay? Modals were what? Helping verbs. So because a modal is a helping verb, it always comes with a main verb in a sentence. One thing that we need to remember is that the main verb, when it comes along with a modal, is always going to be in its base form. Okay, you don't have to change its form. It's going to be in the V1 form, and you don't have to adjust it according to SVC. So you don't have to make it singular because the subject is singular. That's not something we worry about when it comes to main verbs after a modal. All right, so here, and you don't even adjust it for tense. You don't care about tense, you don't care about subject-verb agreement or subject-verb concord. Thank you, modals. You made our life so easy. Okay, so it's always followed by base form of the verb. Okay, whenever we want to form a question with modals, we don't require do. Now, what do we use do for generally? Do you know English? Do you understand what I'm saying? Did you do your homework? Okay, does she have any sense? We always use it to form questions or negatives. Okay, I don't have any sense. I didn't do my homework. Okay, I don't know how to speak English. So when we want to make negatives or questions, we use do. But when we have a modal, we don't need do. We can do away with it. Okay, for example, can you speak English? Do you speak English? Do you can speak English? That's wrong. Simply ask, can you speak English? So, the modal will come in the beginning of the sentence, okay? And when you answer this, I can't speak English. So, we've made the negative form of the sentence with the modal itself. We don't have to use do, okay? Now, next, whenever we want to talk about obligation, so we all know that modals help us express different things. Can, possibility, ability, may, might, possibility, probability, okay, could, ability in the past, will, future, all of these things. Must is commonly used to express obligation, stuff that needs to be done, no questions asked. But must ends up sounding formal a lot of times. So in everyday communication, which is our focus in IELTS, we end up using need or have more than we use must. But what we need to remember about need and have is that they're semi-modals. So whenever we have need and have, that's not enough. We have to add the word to after it to express obligation. So if there's something that somebody must do, they need to do it or they have to do it. You have to turn in your assignment by tomorrow or you won't get marks. Okay? You need to study harder or you're going to fail the semester. Alright? So need, have always requires to, and because need and have both are semi-modals, they are not modals, this rule will not apply to them. Okay? So we cannot say need to we attend the lecture. Can we say need to we attend the lecture? No. What will we say? Do we need to attend the lecture? Alright. So because they are semi-modals, we will use do to form questions with need to and have to. Rule number 2 will not apply to need and have. Alright. And because need and have are very commonly used in the IELTS test, so we need to make sure, see I'm using it so often as well, right? We need to make sure that we use it correctly. So now what are we going to do? We're going to spot the errors, okay? Let's do it together, side by side, hand in hand. If we want to fix this problem, we must trying our best to change our attitude. What is the issue here? We have the modal must, but after, we have the modal must, but after a modal, we are using the ing form of the verb, which is a direct contradiction of our first rule that after a modal, you need only the base form. So we must try our best to change our attitude, okay? We haven't to stop using our car, stop using car altogether, but we do have to use them less often, okay? Now focus on this part of the sentence, but we do have to use them less often. Here, do is being used for emphasis, which I have told you in the past is a good usage of do or forms of do. We use them for emphasis. I do love you, okay? When you want to convince somebody that you love them, I do love you, man, come on, okay? So do can be used for emphasis. Here, everything is right. Our error is in the first part of the sentence and it's to do with our semi-modal have. So now, we had another rule here that for questions and negatives, we don't use do. But then I told you that need and have, because they're semi-modals, don't abide by rule number 2. What are we trying to do here? We are trying to make a negative sentence. So it won't really B, how we do it with other modals. We haven't to stop using our car altogether. We don't have to stop using our car altogether. Or we don't have to stop using cars. Should be cars altogether. Okay? So we will always require forms of do to help us out when it comes to need to or have to. Okay? Alright, next. In my school, we have to left our mobile phones at home. Have to is our modal over here. Okay, need to change the color. Have to is our modal over here. And what have we used? We've used left, which is the V3 form. We have to leave our mobile phones at home is the correct way to frame this sentence. Next, can solve the problem of greenhouse gases in our lifetime? Here we have can. Can is not a semi-modal. So it will follow rule number 2, which is don't require forms of do to make questions. So, can we solve the problem of greenhouse gases in our lifetime is how you will correctly form a question with can. Last, need I to bring any food and drink with me, or is there a shop nearby? Need, semi-modal. So, do I need to bring any food and drink with me, or is there a shop nearby? So I hope that makes sense to you, and I hope you were able to correct all of these sentences related to modals. Bear in mind, we haven't gone through all the modals and the different uses because we're only focusing on things you need to care about when it comes to the IELTS. All right? Okay, now we have to correct the errors in these sentences, and all of these errors have something to do with tense. Okay, so I'm just going to let you pause and try and correct these yourself, and then we can discuss what the errors are. Quickly pause. All of you are not pausing, bunch of cheaters, I must tell you. Okay, now I'm giving you the answers. People should act according to what they are believing. Sounds like a correct sentence because Indians use this construction quite a lot. In fact, not just Indians, anybody who learns English as a second language ends up using this construction a lot. But there are some things that we need to remember clearly when it comes to tenses, and especially the simple present tense. When we use the simple present tense a lot while talking. Okay, so what are some general rules when it comes to using simple present or present simple, however you want to call it? What are some general rules that we need to follow when it comes to using this tense? First is, whenever we are talking about general truths, okay, facts, basically universal truths is how we've learnt this, right? So general truths and facts, we will use the simple present tense. When we're talking about our opinions, likes, dislikes, we'll use the simple present tense. Whenever we're talking about our patterns in life, we'll use this. Whenever we have frequency words like usually, always, okay, every day, words that tell us the frequency of something. Whenever you see a frequency word, you will use simple present tense. And finally, whenever you have words like nowadays, these days, whenever you see these, know that you have to use the simple present tense. Okay, even when it comes to today. Alright, so these are the rules that you need to remember. Any of this checks out, that means simple present tense needs to be used. So now let's look at the first sentence. People should act according to what they are believing. We're giving a general statement. Okay, it's a general opinion about something. So simple present tense needs to be used. What is happening here? We are using the present continuous tense. So we need to change this. People should act according to what they believe. That's all. Okay. Next, I am hoping it is not too late to save the environment. Again, it's a hope for the future. It's a general statement that you're giving related to the environment. So, I hope it is not too late to save the environment. Okay. These days, we have the phrase these days as we spoke about. So, these days, more and more people traveling to very distant places for holidays. Why are we using the ing form? We can simply say more and more people travel to very distant places for holidays. Always remember, simple present tense has your subject plus the V1 form, and you can adjust the V1 form according to the subject. Okay, so you need to correct for subject verb agreement. Very easy way to make the simple, very easy process to make the simple present tense. All right, just remember, these are the instances where you're going to use the simple present tense, and generally this is where number 5, number 4 and number 2 is where people tend to make mistakes. The mistake most commonly being they end up using the continuous tense. So don't use the continuous tense, use the simple present tense. All right. Okay, coming to our next important verb form issue, which is the passive construction. Now we know the difference between active and passive voice. Active voice puts the emphasis on the doer of the action. See, don't think about it as subject, verb, object. That will confuse you. Okay, think about it as doer of the action and the receiver of the action. So when we have the passive voice, the receiver of the action comes to the forefront, and then we have the action, and then we might or might not talk about the doer. That's up to us. Okay, it's the receiver of the action that's more important. For example, whenever you're talking about a crime that has taken place, okay, so they were robbed. Okay, now we're just saying they were robbed. Okay, what is the action? Rob. Did they rob? No, they were robbed. So they are the receiver of the action rob. And who is the doer? The thief. There is no mention of the thief because maybe he hasn't been caught yet. So we don't have to write they were robbed by robbers, because it's very obvious that it's robbers who are going to rob somebody, right? So in this case, mentioning the doer is not helpful. It's just making the sentence long and redundant for no reason. That is why we just stop at they were robbed. Don't mention the doer. Passive construction is useful when we want to emphasize the receiver of the action. It might not sound very intuitive to us, but there are many instances where the receiver is actually more important than the doer. Okay. So nowadays, a great deal of money is spent on advertising. Okay, we're talking about how money is spent. Who is spending the money? Not important. The fact that money is being spent is important. That's why we're using the passive construction. Now, how do we change this according to the tense? Yes, you can change this according to the tense. Now, first thing to remember, passive construction will always have, what do we see here? A form of to be and the V3 form of main verb. Okay, form of to be, V3 form of main verb. Okay, what are our to be forms? Is, am, are, was, were, being, been. All right, these are different forms of the verb be, to be. All right, so how do we change this according to the tense? This is what? This is the simple present tense. Okay, so simple present we have is spent. Now if we want to change it, to present continuous, how do we do that in passive voice? Nowadays, a great deal of money is being spent. Okay, so whenever we have the continuous tense, we add the word being. The main verb remains in the V3 form, okay, and the first word has to be a form of to be. In this case, is, because money is singular and it is the present tense, okay. Now, if I want to go to the simple past tense, what do I do? If I want to go to the simple past tense, I change the to be form to past, money singular, so we will use was, and then simply the V3 form, was spent. Now, if we want to do past continuous, we can just change it to was being spent. Add the word being, okay? And if we want the present perfect, a great deal of money has been spent, okay? And if we want to change it to past perfect, had been spent, okay? So spent, spent, spent remains the same. The first one changes according to the tense, form of to be. Now here what is happening? We have a form of to be here, but we also need a form of has, because in the perfect tense, we always use a form of has, okay? So now a great deal of money has been spent on advertising. We won't use these tenses with nowadays, okay? Nowadays will only be used with the present simple, like we talked about when I showed you the different phrases. Nowadays means simple present tense. But if we take that word away, then we can change the verb, the passive verb, in this manner to adjust it for tense changes, okay? Alright, is that clear? We don't have to go into future when it comes to passive construction. So now let's correct the mistakes in these sentences. Please pause, answer the questions, and then I'll give you the answers. Pause. Okay. Now, the house was sell for over $1 million. Now, who sold the house? Not important. House was sold. Receiver of selling is house. Passive voice. Passive voice has was. We're talking about the simple past tense, but then sell is in the base form. That won't fly. Our main verb needs to be in the V3 form. Was sold for over $1 million. Smoking do not allow in any part of the aeroplane. Is not allowed. Okay. The museum was being renovating when we were there, so we could not see it. The museum was being renovated. So the main verb always V3 form, and the first part, the helping verb situation, needs to be changed according to whatever tense the passive voice sentence is in. You can always refer to this to figure out how to change it, okay? Next. New employees have instructed not to operate photocopier until they are trained. What is happening here? We want to make this a passive voice sentence, but we are framing it like an active voice sentence. We're saying new employees have instructed. But the reality is they have not instructed, they have been instructed, okay? So we are missing the been here to make it a passive voice sentence. Otherwise, the first half sounds like an active voice sentence, okay? Because been is missing. New employees have been instructed not to operate the photocopy until they are trained, okay? So that was passive voice. Now we've come to the last bit of today's session, which is just little bit of information to make your speech sound more fluent and grammatically accurate. After certain adjectives, we have to use a certain form of the verb, okay? And I'm just going to quickly tell you what that is. If you have the verb feel, then you have an adjective after it, okay? Okay? Then you will always use a different color, ing form of the verb after this, okay? For example, I always feel happy visiting this place. Alright, so feel plus an adjective, we'll use the ing form of the verb after this, okay? Or I always feel disappointed seeing him behave like this, okay? I always feel disappointed seeing him behave like this. Seeing? No, we need a different color. Yeah. Seeing, ing form. After, feel and disappointed, which is your adjective. Okay? That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, if you have be and then an adjective, what will you use? If you have be and an adjective, you're going to use the infinitive form. What is the infinitive form? Once I give you an example, you will remember. Okay? So, they must be excited to participate in the science fair. Be excited to participate. What is to participate? Infinitive form. What is our infinitive form? To and base form of the verb. Okay. Now, quickly, if you have to plus adjective, again infinitive after that. If you have adjective plus enough, again infinitive after that. I'll give you 2 examples, it will all become clear. Okay. So, he is too, or he is too angry to speak to you right now. Okay. And finally, adjective plus enough. They've hoarded enough. Oh, wait, 1 second. Let me just... So, whenever you have an adjective plus enough, okay? They are rich enough to afford a house in that area. Rich enough to afford. Here, to afford is your infinitive. To speak, he is too angry to speak to you right now. Be plus adjective, they must be excited to participate in the science fair. Okay? So, whenever you have these instances, always remember the kind of verb that will come after. Ing for feel plus adjective, infinitive for the rest of them. Okay? And when it comes to prepositions, again, there are some rules that you can follow. Okay? Whenever you have the prepositions without, about, by, from, for, in, of, etc., this is not an exhaustive list. Despite, in spite of, instead of, these are also prepositions. What is the verb form that you're going to use after this? You are going to, let's form a sentence and then it'll become clear to you. Okay, so let's just pick one. Let's say about. I'm thinking about applying to that university. What form did we use? ing form of the verb. Okay, we can make more examples from the list given. Okay. You cannot get a good grade without studying or without attending classes. All right. Another example. He got mad at me instead of being grateful. So, instead of being. So, whenever we have verbs after these prepositions, which form of the verb are we going to use? We are going to use ing form. Now, here's where I give you a little homework. One second, let me just see the task after this. Yes. Here's where I give you a little homework. Make one sentence with each marked preposition. Okay. I need this in the comments, and the marked prepositions are all right. So 5 sentences you have to make. Now you need to gear up because I have a quick test for you. This is an audio test. There's not going to be any fancy audio. It's just going to be me, okay, who's going to read out a candidate's answer to a question, to an interview question, and you need to listen to me very carefully, and you have to point out all the mistakes that were made in the answer. The mistakes are all going to be related to two. The mistakes are going to be related to two. You might have to add a two somewhere. You might have to delete the two. Okay. So here I'm just going to read out what the interview is asking, then the answer. Go grab a pen and a paper and quickly take this test. I will give you the answers for this test later on in the comments. Okay. Are we ready? Here we go. Interviewer. What kind of thing do you like doing in your spare time? Candidate. Well, I really enjoy listening to music, and I also like doing sport in my free time. I think everyone should to look after their body and try keep fit. I love soccer, and I was actually offered a place in my local soccer team, but I had turned it down because my parents wouldn't to allow me take it. Interviewer. Are there any new skills you would like to learn in the future? Candidate. Well, as I said, I love music, so I would love to learn to play the guitar one day. When I was younger, my parents suggested to studying a musical instrument, but I wasn't interested at the time. If you want to be a good musician, you really must to work hard and keep to practicing every day. At that time, I was spending a lot of time to studying, so I couldn't do it then. But I'm looking forward learning to play sometime in the future. All right, that was your audio test. How many mistakes did you have to correct? 12 mistakes. If you haven't found 12 mistakes, go back, listen to it again. Find the 12 mistakes. You will get the answers for this soon. All right. That brings me to the end of today's session. Hope you found that helpful. Do not forget to fill out this counseling form to get all the help that you need to go and study abroad. And also do not forget to subscribe to the channel, follow us on all our social media. Don't forget to like the video, leave your feedback in the comments and share it with all of your friends. Take very good care of yourselves. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.